These are the absolute worst diseases in Warhammer 40k. Number 6, the Gellerpox. If you thought working near the engine room was bad, try catching a disease that makes you fuse with it. Ships in the Imperium travel through the warp, an alternate dimension full of hostile entities called demons. The only thing stopping those demons from pouring in and killing everyone is a Geller field, a psychic barrier generated by ancient machinery. Somebody has to work near that machinery, and sometimes that machinery gets infected. The Gellerpox is a plague spawned by Nurgle, the chaos god of disease and decay, that specifically targets crew working near Gellerfield generators. It doesn't start with symptoms, it starts with dreams. Workers begin having strange nightmares, nothing dramatic, just enough to make them superstitious. They start rubbing protective symbols onto the machinery, knocking on the generator housing for luck. Little rituals that feel harmless, they're not. Each ritual quietly wears down the protective wards built into the equipment. The disease is using the crew's own caution against them. Then the dreams get louder. Voices during waking hours telling workers to remove protective symbols, dismantle wards, open sealed panels, and the infected crew are absolutely certain they're helping. They believe they're improving the equipment. They'll cheerfully explain what they're doing while tearing out the only thing keeping demons off the ship. Then the bodies start changing. Boils, bloated stomachs, tentacles where fingers were. In the final stage, workers rest their heads against the generator housing, and the metal flows like liquid around their skulls, fusing into masks of warp-tainted steel. The most extreme cases become nightmare hulks 10 feet tall, over a ton, the absolute limit of what a human frame can hold before it stops being human entirely. The ship itself starts changing too. Metal becomes organic tissue, rats and insects mutate into creatures that lay eggs in your eyes. By the time anyone notices, the ship is less a vessel and more a floating organ. No cure, the only solution is killing the infected and burning the affected decks. Sometimes that's not enough. Number 5, the flesh change. Imagine your bones cracking and reforming while you watch extra limbs sprout from your body, and knowing your own power is what's doing it to you. That's called the flesh change. It's a mutagenic contagion carried in the gene seed of the Thousand Sons, a space marine legion that's a brotherhood of genetically engineered superhuman warriors with unusually strong psychic abilities. Gene seed is the biological template used to create new marines. Every recruit implanted with Thousand Sons gene seed carries this thing inside them, which makes it a disease that spreads through the legion's own recruitment process. It strikes without warning. Bones crack and reform mid-sentence. Skin splits open as extra limbs punch through from inside. Eyes multiply across faces. Organs shift position while the marine is still conscious. The spiral always ends the same way. The victim collapses into a chaos spawn, a writhing mass of tentacles and misshapen flesh with no mind left inside. Just meat that won't stop moving. During the compliance of Bizan, a marine named Hastur mutated in front of the entire legion. His body twisted into something massive and unrecognizable while he was still inside it. He seemed to reach out toward his Primarch Magnus, that's the genetically perfect superhuman who founded the Legion, before being killed. The sight triggered panic across the ranks. Panic triggered more mutations. The flesh change feeds on psychic energy, and fear is psychic energy. By the time Magnus reunited with his Legion on Prospero, barely 1,000 remained alive of tens of thousands. Magnus bargained with a warp entity, later revealed to be Tzeentch, the chaos god of change, sacrificing one of his own eyes for a cure. It worked. Temporarily. After the Horus Heresy drove the Thousand Sons into exile, the change came back. Their greatest sorcerer, Ahriman, cast a desperate counterspell called the Rubric. The mutation stopped, but every marine without strong enough psychic power was reduced to dust, sealed inside their armor. The cure killed most of the Legion. 10,000 years later, Ahriman is still trying to undo it. He hasn't succeeded. Number 4, the obliterator virus. Speaking of diseases that rewrite what you are, this next one doesn't just change your body. It turns your body into a weapons factory. The obliterator virus is a chaos-tainted techno-organic infection that fuses the victim's flesh with weapons and machinery. It spreads through touch or transfer of bodily fluids, and it works in stages. That's the cruel part. You get to watch it happen. Early on, you just feel comfortable with weapons. Too comfortable. A gun feels less like a tool and more like a limb. Then your aim improves beyond what training can explain. You might think you're getting better, but you're not getting better. You're getting infected. By the middle stages, weapons you hold too long won't come off. Skin grows over the trigger guard. Tendons fuse with a barrel. Your armor stops being something you wear and becomes something you are, metal and bone merging at the molecular level. Your body starts generating ammunition between muscle fibers. Gun barrels fold out of your forearms. Late stages erase whatever was left of the person. The body produces flesh metal, a fusion of muscle tissue and powdered steel, and can recreate any weapon in the galaxy from its own mass. But locomotion degrades to a slow walk. Your weapon's platform wearing something that used to be a person. A fragment of awareness might survive in there somewhere, watching guns sprout from what used to be hands. No cure exists. The Iron Warriors, a traitor Space Marine Legion obsessed with siege warfare, deliberately infect their own troops with a modified version because the result is too useful to pass up. Since the 13th Black Crusade, a mutated airborne strain has been spreading across the Imperium. Obliterator cults are forming on Forge Worlds. The Mechanicus, the Imperium's technology cult, considers this their worst nightmare, and they've had 10,000 years of nightmares to compare it to. Number 3. The Walking Pox. Most zombie plagues at least have the decency to kill your mind first. This one doesn't. The Walking Pox turns victims into poxwalkers, shambling rotting husks covered in horn-like growths and boils. Think zombies. Now make it worse, because the victim is still conscious the entire time. It starts with what survivors call the groaner phase. You're still mostly human, but you've lost control of your body. You can feel things crawling inside you, inside your body, and inside your mind. Unnatural cold, constant hunger, your mouth moves on its own, mumbling words you didn't choose. Hungry, cold, you laugh or cry without meaning to. When you encounter other people, your body lunges at them, clawing, biting, feeding. You watch yourself do it. Then you die, and you come back. They always come back. The second phase is worse. Your flesh mutates further, clusters of extra eyes appear in groups of 3. Tentacles sprout, your face locks into a permanent grin, a rictus of agony that never relaxes. When something injures you, pus and maggots burst from the wounds instead of blood. Your soul is still in there, watching, unable to stop any of it. The walking pox spreads through sound. The ceaseless groaning of a poxwalker horde carries the curse on the air itself. Get close enough to hear them clearly, and you're at risk. It also spreads through bites and scratches. Since the Great Rift tore the galaxy in half, outbreaks have multiplied across thousands of worlds. The Inquisition, the Imperium's secret police, created an entirely new division called the Ordo Sepulchrum, specifically for this one disease. That's how bad it's gotten. A whole new branch of their most powerful organization just for the walking dead with the living still trapped inside. Number 2, the Flare Virus. In the 41st millennium, Adeptus Mechanicus tech priests, the Imperium's technology cult, recovered samples of Necron living metal from a tomb world and brought them back to a research station for study. Within weeks, the researchers began mutilating themselves, cutting their own flesh, worshipping an entity called Landugor that none of them had heard of before touching the metal. The living metal had infected them with something that shouldn't be able to cross from machine to organic life. But it did. That something is the Flare Virus. It originated 60 million years ago, when the Necrons, ancient beings who traded their organic bodies for immortality and living metal, destroyed a godlike entity called Landugor the Flare. As he died, he cursed the entire species with his own fathomless hunger. His dying words burned into every Necron present. "I am the hunger, I am the flare, and from this moment you shall be too." Infected Necrons develop an insatiable craving for organic flesh. They have no mouth to eat with, no stomach to digest, no nerves to feel, but the hunger screams anyway. They kill living creatures and skin them, draping warm gore over their metal frames, trying to feel something. It falls through them, the hunger doesn't stop. The virus spreads through contact with infected living metal, possibly through proximity alone. By the time anyone recognized the symptoms, carriers had reached 1,000 worlds. There's an entire tomb world called the Bone Kingdom of Drazak, ruled by a Necron lord named Valgul, who succumbed but somehow kept his sanity. When his kingdom runs low on victims, he declares a time of bounty and sends fleets to harvest the living. An entire civilization organized around feeding a hunger that can never be satisfied. No Cryptek, that's a Necron scientist capable of manipulating reality itself, has found a cure in 60 million years of trying. The disease is as immortal as they are. Number 1. Nurgle's Rot. Every other entry on this list destroys the body, the mind, or both. Nurgle's Rot destroys the soul. This is Nurgle's masterpiece. The plague god has spent 10,000 years crafting diseases, and by his own estimation, he has never bettered this one. It combines every terrible element of every plague that has ever existed in the galaxy, and it adds something none of them have. It doesn't end when you die. Symptoms vary because the disease borrows from everything: painful boils, blood curdling in the veins, flesh rotting while the victim stays conscious. Then the specific mutations begin. Two eyes gradually merge into one, a horn sprouts from the forehead, madness sets in as the body falls apart, but that's just what happens to the body. Here's what happens to the soul. In Nurgle's garden, a dimension inside the warp, a seed sprouts on a moldering willow tree the moment you're infected. As the disease progresses, the seed swells into a fruit that feeds on your soul like a parasite gorging on blood. The longer you fight the disease, the fatter the fruit grows. When you finally die, the last traces of your soul get sucked into that swollen fruit. The flesh bursts apart, and a new plague-bearer demon crawls out. Gangly limbs, a body so bloated with decay that innards show through rents in the skin, a single horn crusted with dried pus. That demon is what's left of you, bound to Nurgle's service for eternity in a rotting body that will never die, and the cruel twist: the longer your soul resisted in life, the more powerful the resulting plague-bearer. Fighting harder doesn't save you, it just makes you a better demon. There is no cure. The Inquisition has ordered exterminatus, the total destruction of an entire planet, upon a single confirmed case. Not an outbreak, one case. Even the Imperium, which routinely sacrifices millions without blinking, considers one instance of Nurgle's rot worth burning a whole world to stop. Nurgle doesn't see any of this as cruelty. He genuinely loves his victims. He's proud of this disease the way an artist is proud of their finest work. Well, that's the list. 6 diseases that make a common cold look like a vacation. The 41st millennium has plenty more ways to rot, but these earn the top spots. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, watch your hands. It won't help, but at least you tried.